Okay, so I'm going to start off this video unfortunately apologizing about two things. First off, I started making some YouTube videos years ago, and I have been unable to based off of a lot of different tragic circumstances in my family that I'm not really going to go into in this particular video. And then the other apology is for the length of this video. I wanted to really show off, not in a prideful way, but just show off basically my new shop. And this project really kind of recruited all of my tools in my shop basically to be able to build this particular piece of furniture. And I wanted to kind of design a piece of furniture that would make that necessary essentially. So I started out doing woodworking over 10 years ago now with 10 hand tools, and now I have a shop with all kinds of new additions to it. So this project really kind of like brought all of that together, so it was kind of exciting in that regard. And it was also just really exciting to be building a piece of furniture for a church in my pastorate that has decided to basically bring the Blessed Sacrament contained in the Tabernacle of a Catholic church. Was over in the corner of the church. So they're basically moving Christ back to the center of the church, which is a wonderful thing to be a part of. So it's just kind of an exciting little project that I was approached about, and I figured that I would just go on ahead and say what I can about it in this about an hour long, unfortunately, video. But again, I didn't really want to leave. I wanted to put as much information in here as I could. So that you guys can basically kind of see, what all kind of work I'm basically able to do these days. So here's the design that I came up with. It is nothing particularly crazy, just trying to come up with a beautiful kind of classical looking design to fit into a more modern church. So everything you're going to see me start out doing here is all just my rough dimensioning process. So I'm just picking out the best sections of red oak lumber. The church requested that I make it in red oak. I know that red oak isn't for everybody. A lot of people would say we'll do it in white oak, but they wanted it to match what was already there. So that was why I went with the red oak, because that's what was in the building already. So I'm just choosing the best sections of it, cutting them to length, and then now I am getting a straight edge. And then with that straight edge, I can grab out my bandsaw and start cutting things into, I was shooting for somewhere around 3-inch sections of this. I like to do that when I am making panels. So these are going to be edge jointed into 14, 15-inch red oak panels, 14, 15 inches in width. I think that my final dimensions actually came out to be 14 3/4 of an inch, and that was the width of them. And I think that they were 7/8 of an inch thick was what I was able to get. I also get all of my lumber from Frank Miller Lumber. So that's where I was able to get this. It's out of Union City, Indiana. So cut them down to 3 inches, and then I just sent them through my planer. Now I am getting ready to true up an edge. So basically I've got flat faces, and now I am just working on getting a 90-degree edge to my faces. And then from there, I can take my hand plane, though I didn't show it in this video, and I can get, I can go on ahead and get pristine edges to be able to glue together. So that's what I'm doing here, is I have glued them into panels. So after I let my panels sit for at least overnight, then I'm just going to clean up one of the faces and get it dead flat. I don't have a super wide joiner, and I've just found that it's easier to just grab out the winding sticks and do it by hand, which is what you see me doing right here. And then I just clean up the back face of it so that it doesn't tear up my blades on my planer. And what I'm basically showing right now is that the boards are flat, which you can't see great in the camera. I didn't really do a great job of filming that, but that's basically what I'm showing right now. And then I will just joint an edge again. That way I get a perfectly straight edge, because when you go to clamp a panel together, it can slightly bow the boards. That's just kind of the nature of it. So it's always wise to try to joint another edge. Now I'm just showing a blade change. I can't remember, or I can't, I just got this table saw at the end of last year, and it's been a great saw. I'll have to, or that's what it is. I keep not being able to remember. It's a Laguna table saw. It's been fantastic. So I just cut everything to its width. And then now I'm just running things through my 15-inch wide Grizzly planer to be able to get everything to the same thickness. And then now I'm preparing the ends of each one of my boards in order to be able to cut them to their length. And there was one of them that, like, normally what I'll do is I will cut the end of each board so that they are flush to one another when I go to glue them up. There was one that I forgot to do that with, which is why you saw me grab out the Skill circular saw and cut that one to length, and that makes it to where I can ride everything up along my table saw fence. Now I'm just creating a small rebate or rabbet on the my dovetail pin boards, which makes your layout a lot easier. And then taking the thickness and transferring that with a marking gauge, and then laying out my actual dovetails using a compass. So everything that you just saw me do there was on a cutoff end of one of my boards. And the reason why I did that is because these are fairly large panels, so it actually makes it pretty nice to just lay out my dovetails on the end of a board like that, just a cutoff end that I'm going to end up throwing away anyway. And then I can just take that and transfer those lines directly onto my actual workpiece, and that way if I need to make any adjustments, I don't end up with a bunch of lines all over the end of one of my boards. It's just one of the things that I do when I lay everything out. Okay, so after I get everything all laid out, it's time for the actual fun part. This is really what got me into, kind of the finer side of woodworking, is the hand-cut joinery. So I, pretty much the entire project for me always revolves around the idea of cutting the joinery, mostly by hand, especially dovetails. I don't think I've never cut a set of machine cut dovetails. I don't have any jigs or anything like that. Not saying I never will, but this is just what I love about woodworking. And I'm using this great Florip Toolworks saw. Unfortunately, Matt Florip passed away, and his business, I think, is no more. But definitely one of the best saws in my arsenal. So after I get my pins all cut, I transfer them onto the, or after I get all of the tails cut, I transfer them over to my pin board. And especially on a bigger project like this, where I'm not super, I want these to be good looking dovetails, but no one's going to see them. So I quickly lay them out using the Rob Cosman method. You can cut really, really great dovetails using the Rob Cosman method. Nothing, it seriously does pretty much give you gapless free dovetails. I don't always use that particular method, but it does work out really quite well. And then now I am basically just cutting the pins. So now I am removing the waste using a fret saw. This is, it's a coping fret saw combination saw, basically, from KM Tools. A fairly expensive saw. I think it was like $150 or something like that. But there really hasn't been any innovation really at all when it came to coping saws. So I went on ahead and bought this one just because I wanted to support the guy in his endeavors of making woodworking tools even better. And it's a great saw. I do really like it. I probably should have used the coping saw function to remove the pin, or the pin board waste. I keep getting that mixed up in my mind. But rather than doing the switch, I just used the fret saw blade rather than a coping saw blade to remove all of my waste, which was a bit of a workout, but it worked out really, really well. I cant my saw quite a bit, which is why you see that there's quite a bit of waste on the back side of these, but I like to do that just to make sure that I don't end up making a mistake. So now I'm just removing the rest of my waste down to my gauge lines using a chisel, and this is pretty much, a very normative operation. To see really much of fine woodworking is just working down to a very fine line. So like, even if you're using power tools, most fine woodworkers are still going to clean everything up with a chisel and a hammer. Because that's really about the only way that you can guarantee that things are going to come out just the way that you want them, and really give you that handmade quality look that we want to go for. So that's what you see me doing here, is just removing that waste at first by kind of hacking away at it with a hammer, and then I refine things by paring down to that line. Hoping to not undercut, but if you do on dovetails, it's really not the end of the world. And a lot of fine woodworkers actually tell you to undercut. And then on the back side of these, I'm just cutting a little bit off of each corner of the dovetails in order to basically decompress the fit, so it'll make it to where when I go to fit everything together, it will go together a lot more smoothly. Okay, so after I get things all cut and all the waste removed, then it's time to do a test fit, and that's what you see me doing here, is hoping for a good tight fit. Again, if on this particular project, if there are gaps and whatnot, it's not the end of the world. I was fortunate in that I don't really think that there were any noticeable gaps on any of these dovetails, which is, really good considering that I think each one had, I think each corner had 10 dovetails, so pretty good stuff for as many dovetails in red oak like this to be able to come out with a good tight fit. And certainly, like being that this is not, really structural in any way for the building or anything like that, doing this with dovetails is going to be plenty. And then from there, I just trim them flush. A lot of guys really recommend using low angle planes to be able to trim up the waste for dovetails. I have found that a freshly sharpened Stanley No. 4 works really quite well. So I have not invested in the money in getting any low angle planes, other than one that I use from time to time for cutting rebates and stuff like that. But yeah, I typically just trim things up using the old Stanley No. 4. So this was the end result after all of the dovetail joinery was done. So I was able to get a very nice frame made, carcass made for this particular project. Now I just needed to be able to cut a bunch of grooves to be able to accept the tongue and groove backing for this particular project. So I wanted to have tongue and groove beadboard that I did kind of an interesting method for doing the beading on, so that's why I have to make all of these different grooves. So now I am just taking my tongue and groove stock and getting it down to the right dimensions. So I didn't walk you through the entire process of me dimensioning all of that down because it's the same for everything else. So now I'm just cutting everything to the right length. And then I wanted to make everything on the back of it look mostly symmetrical. I can't remember what the dimensions came out to. I think it was like 2 3/4 of wood is basically what you're going to be able to see if you're looking at it from the front. So like each board, you'll be able to see 2 3/4 of an inch of material basically will be revealed to you looking at it from the front. So yeah, I'm just basically getting all of my measurements and getting everything down to the right length and width before I start doing my grooves and then adding my beading and everything like that to this project. Again, another big shout out to the maker of this saw. I think it's a Laguna Fusion 2 saw is what I have. It's whichever one has a 36-inch wide cutting capacity as far as the width of your material. Really, really great saw. And then Ridge Carbide table saw blades are also one of the best. I mean, they're expensive blades, but you know, for what you're getting, they are a fantastic table saw blade. When I mentioned earlier that I clean up my edges before I glue together my panels and everything like that, that's what this is what I was talking about. I grabbed my Lee Nielsen number 5.5 hand plane with a nicely sharpened blade on it, and I just go on ahead and clean up one of the edges. This is my other favorite part of woodworking, is just planing a board straight and smooth and everything like that. I love using a hand plane, just being able to take these really lovely shavings and hearing the sound of that blade go across the board is always just one of the most satisfying and lovely things about being a woodworker. Now what you're seeing me do is just preparing everything for each one of these tongue and groove bead boards that's going to make up the back of this case. So in order to do that, I have to make a rebate or rabbet on the back of each board. So I was just making sure that I have my board facing the right way, because I did lay each one of these boards out to look a particular way. And then I'm just using my router to create the rebate. In hindsight, I probably should have used my dado stack, which you'll see me use on my table saw a little bit later on there. But I just wanted to see how it would do, and it really did okay. There was a little bit of tear out, but again, it's on the back side. And like I said at the beginning of all of this, I wanted to really kind of play around in my shop and see what all of my new equipment could really do, and how fast I could do it and everything like that. So really it worked out pretty well. I think here I'm making my tongues, maybe, is what I think I'm doing. Oh no, that's another rebate going along the length of each one of the boards that are going to go onto the side for this particular project. Now I am using my dado stack to create each one of the tongues and grooves for this. I think right now I'm making grooves. A lot could be said too about having good equipment and knowing how to properly use it in a safe manner. So like you've seen me use my table saw. Like I know that I don't always use the writhing knife in some, like when everyone would consider that I should and whatnot. But again, you do this long enough, you kind of figure out what you can get away with and what's actually safe. So I think like earlier in one of my videos, you saw that I was cross-cutting a board, and it's like, yeah, I don't think that I had the writhing knife or anything like that on it, but if that little piece of wood kicks back, which it's unlikely to, I'm not terribly worried about it killing me or anything like that. So although I have had some scary situations happen, there's a reason why I use a lot of the protective equipment and whatnot, and I do think that I, for the most part, run a pretty safe shop. Now I'm just, this is kind of one of the other things about fine woodworking you always find yourself doing, is you're really always just kind of tuning things up. So I'm just adding a small chamfer that will help me fit everything on the back of this case and whatnot. Keeps things from getting damaged and strengthens the end of a board. Okay, here is another one of the more super important things that you'll see woodworkers do quite a bit that I don't necessarily think makes it into everybody's YouTube videos and whatnot. Not criticizing anybody. I mean, like I get it. It's an extra thing that you have to show there, but it is to make sure that you assemble everything and make sure that it fits. And like really, when I am building a project, I am going to assemble and reassemble it repeatedly in order to make sure that everything fits together. So, and this is a good example of this. At least I think it made it into this, that you'll see me fit everything together, and then there will be a board that won't, or like when I start to put the tongue and groove pieces in, they needed to be cut down a little bit, and I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't gone and fit them together. And that would be really bad when you go to assemble things. So when you're allowing your glue, or like it only takes about 5 to 10 minutes. I think it's 8 minutes for Titebond 3, which is the wood glue that I typically use for a project like this. It only takes 5-10 minutes for it to begin setting up. So if say I was gluing this up, and right here I realized that, oh no, all of my boards are too long, and I didn't fit it together, then now I have a very short window to glue up a case like this, and that creates all kind of problems. So it's very important. So like here you can see the camera cut, and that was because I went and I had to cut each one of my boards down slightly, not much, it was like a 1/16 of an inch or something like that. But that's common to see happen. So I cut down each one of them and then get everything fit together, and I'm happy with it to where I can start doing other aspects of this project. Okay, so being that I was happy with the fit and everything, after I got everything assembled and I was happy with how it looks, it's like, well, now it's time to start adding in some of those more decorative features. So that's what I'm doing right here, is I'm just putting a slight round over on each one of the groove boards. And then you're going to see me transfer over to my table saw in a second, and I'm just going to take a thin kerf blade, again from Ridge Carbide, which they make literally like for the price they are probably the best table saw blade on the market. But I'm just taking a thin kerf blade and only raising it maybe like a 1/16 of an inch over the table of the table saw, and just running the kerf of the blade through there. And what that's going to do is just create some shadow lines. So it's not true tongue and groove beadboard. I could have done this if I wanted to, but again, I just kind of wanted to play around in my shop. No one is really going to be, other than a priest, be like super up close and personal with this particular piece. So I just wanted people to be able to see some shadow lines from a distance. So the bigger kerf, in my mind, was the way to go that you would get from the table saw blade versus doing it with a hand plane. Now I am creating. This is just kind of the funny thing. I never really had done work like this before, so I had to actually kind of again like learn how to make safe cuts and stuff like that in my shop at such extreme angles. So I wanted to basically I needed 30 and 60 degree angles in order to be able to make this piece of furniture work out the way that I wanted it to. So kind of a nerve-wracking situation, but I think I looked up a James Hamilton Stumpy Nubs video on how to make some of these cuts and things like that, and was able to do it safely, and turned out really, really nicely. And again, you're going to get a little bit of burning effect whenever you're making that steep of an angle cut, I think, regardless of what your blade does. But again, the Ridge Carbide blade did fantastic in this material. So the grooves that you just saw me cutting were being cut to accept this piece. So I had to cut a groove in the dovetail frame and then this piece. And I'm not gonna lie, I cut it incorrectly. Like again, like I said, I haven't really done a lot of work needing to do angles and stuff like that. So yeah, when I did that, it was just one of those things that I had never done it. So in my brain, it made sense what I was doing, but then when put in practice, it didn't work out. So, but I didn't show that I recut it and everything, but the final piece did fit perfectly in there. And you also see again that burnout that I was talking about that I just left on those angled pieces. Um, I didn't really see the point in cleaning it up. It would have been fairly difficult to do basically with the tools that I had, and it didn't really make an impact on the look, and no one's going to see it, and it isn't structural. So so I just left the rough saw marks on there, not being too terribly worried about. Again, it's going to get glued in place and then pinned in place with a pin nailer, which is going to be plenty to be able to hold that. But then also, when you look at the remainder of this, the front of the piece is going to get glued to that portion as well. So it's actually going to be held together in more ways than one. So because of that, it wasn't really necessarily done out of laziness. It's more so done out of the philosophy of more of like a Thomas Aquinas way of looking at things. You make things according to right reason. That's what art actually is. So it didn't seem reasonable to me to go through the extra work doing that. From here, I'm just adding some decorative features onto the front of this. This was kind of cool. I learned this little trick to be able to cut just a slight cove. This was something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. But I just integrated into this project of basically the ability to cut my own cove molding if I want to, and it worked out really, really well. I'm adding a slight curve on the very end of each one of these pieces to just kind of soften everything and not like make it look like a little tiny house basically, and make it look a little bit more artistic, a little bit more beautiful. And it's just those little things that you add to a project like this that like I got the idea from that by sitting in a different church. I was like, oh, okay, that's how you would end that piece of trim like that. So just kind of a cool one to take a look at there. The rest of this is just kind of getting all of these little front pieces that are going to go together, all the angles cut and put together nicely. So this is my Rockler router table. I recently invested in it, and it is really nice how quickly you can get things set up with it. And I'm just using it really quickly to do a real quick round over on some of the front pieces that you can see there. Really a lot of what I'm doing here with this project is just kind of creating a lot of those more decorative shadow lines, playing around with some aspects of that more classical Greek and Roman way of building and design and everything, which was of course a great joy to be able to do. Right now I've just grabbed the number 4 hand plane again, and you really just can't beat doing hand roundovers. So I would have to do a lot of I would have to have a huge project for me to not do my roundovers by hand. They, in my opinion, doing them by hand just looks a lot better. So that's what you were watching me do there, and just getting everything cut down to size and hand planed down and ready for the next steps. Okay, so like a lot of woodworkers, I don't really prefer super expensive or complicated finishes. I like to use very simple finishes. There's only a handful that I really reach for. So this project, I decided to just go with blonde shellac. I buy shellac flakes and mix them with denatured alcohol. Uh, let that substance sit, and then when I need to just mix up a little bit of a time, I grab that jar that already has the de-waxed flakes already basically reduced down, and then I can just go on ahead and mix up whatever I need. It ends up being, the flakes are expensive, but it ends up saving you money in the long run because if you buy the pre-mixed cans, they tend to not have the best shelf life, so that's why we do it basically. And I'm just making sure that when I apply my finish, this is done to the inside, so that when I go to glue up, which is what you see me doing right now, if I have any squeeze out on the inside of it, then I don't really have to worry about it. The shellac, the glue doesn't adhere to shellac, which means you have to be careful to not get any of the shellac on the actual joints themselves. But it makes it to where the cleanup is really quite nice. Now, glue ups are my least favorite thing probably about woodworking because they don't always go well. But I think it was Paul Sellers or one of the woodworkers that I follow out there that was like, I've yet to come across a project that enough clamps and enough hammer blows can't bring together. But that was certainly not an issue with this project. It came together so well, I don't even think I actually used any clamps. Again, I didn't have any gaps, but if I would have had any gaps, it wouldn't have really bothered me on this project again because nobody was going to see it. It just needed to be structurally sound and look good on the inside and the front. So, but really, this glue up went really quite nicely. Everything was square, true, had no problems, and I wish that I could say that with every project that I do. So after I got all of my, like everything that could get glued up and sanded down, after I got everything like that taken care of, there was one aspect of this project that I tried to hand carve a miraculous metal into it, and it just really wasn't working great in the red oak. So I decided, after consulting with the priest, I was like, well, what do you think about doing an inlay? And he really liked that idea. So I happen to have a laser engraver. Um, I I don't have a problem with getting into like trying to do an inlay by hand. It's not, I'm a big fan of like woodworkers like Frank Straza and people like that. Again, this project though, I just didn't have time for something like that. So while it would be cool to do some inlays and things like that one of these days by hand, and I'm sure that I could. It was just for this project, they needed it, and I needed to get it done. And I, have this piece of equipment from X-Tool. It's like a 4-in-1 machine. I can't remember what in the world the thing is called, but great tool. Works fantastic in comparison to the other piece of junk that I had there. You can actually see on that piece of wood where I attempted to carve it, and it just didn't really, to me, it just wasn't going to work out the greatest. So I just decided to go on ahead and do the inlay, and the inlay really turned out quite nicely. I went with walnut and curly maple. So after I got my inlay done, which also on the inlay as well, one of the other big reasons why I decided to go with the inlay and use contrasting woods and whatnot was when I started to carve it, not only was it not going the greatest, but I also didn't think it was going to be very visible from a distance. So I was like, well, it does really kind of need to stand out. The church is, called Immaculate Conception Catholic Church, so it's like, it would be kind of cool to be able to see. You might not be able to see it from the very back of the church and make out what it is, but definitely if you're in probably like the middle of the church forward, you're going to be able to see, oh, okay, there's a miraculous medal in the front of the, or in that little niche that was built for this church. But now it's just time to assemble everything together there, so glue the top on and pin it down. Like I said, like none of the, unfortunately, a lot of the back of this is not going to get seen because it's going to get recessed inside a wall. But even still, like, because I've glued each one of these pieces onto onto the top and the sides of the piece, it's going to make it to where, like, even if the top started to lose a bit of its strength with the glue or the nails or whatever, the front is actually going to hold that on quite nicely. And not really worried about expansion and contraction on when it comes, at least I think I've not broken any cardinal rules of wood movement or anything like that, because I was gluing everything long grain to long grain. So I think it's going to hold up really quite nicely over time. From there, I did want to have some carvings in it, so I did decide to go on ahead and carve 2 rosettes and put some flutes, which I think you can see the flutes on the on each one of these pieces that have the angles cut in them. So yeah, I'm just laying out 2 rosettes, and then I hand carve those. I don't have a CNC routing machine, but again, there's just something about the hand carved look that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of most people, just looks a lot more authentic and a lot better. It's just something that I don't think that you can really replicate by doing it with a machine. When it comes to carving the rosettes, I learned how to carve these. Paul Sellers put out a video however many years ago now on how to lay out and carve rosettes. I've gotten fairly good at carving them. I've carved a lot of them because I make boxes to sell that have hand carved rosettes in them. This is my process for carving rosettes. Not hard at all. Doing a carving like this is not really all too terribly challenging. Just making it look good is challenging. So you kind of see a bit of a back and forth there when it comes to carving these things. And ultimately, I was really, really happy with how they turned out. Okay, so after I got my rosettes all carved, my flutes cut into each one of the last remaining pieces of this particular project, which after this was all said and done, it was like, it didn't take me that long to build this project, but with all the moving parts and how everything needed to come together, I was very happy to have it done. I just do my last glue up procedures here. And hopefully from the pictures you'll be able to see why this is built the way that it was. That it's like I'm not leaving all of this excess overhang and everything like that just because I want to. It's to be able to cover up the hole that has to be cut in the wall. So, to give myself and the other craftsmen that were working on this project the ability to basically hide everything and make everything come together pretty seamlessly. Just what had to be done. I'm also not, it's just kind of funny that I'm also wearing a Miraculous Metal shirt. So I am Catholic, if you didn't know. But now I'm just applying that blonde shellac to the outside of the project, which again, this is always that time when it's like, you still have some things to worry about as a woodworker here, because like you can have the finish go completely wrong and then you have a lot of extra work in it. But fortunately, I've been doing this for quite some time, so it really came out quite nicely. You can actually even kind of see the sheen and the shine of it that I'm now taking and taking some steel wool and basically buffing down the front of it to kind of give it that more of a satin luster effect to it. But very, very happy with how the entire project turned out. And I don't know if everybody else would consider it to be a piece of fine furniture, but it certainly was worthy of bearing my signature as a finer piece. And I was happy to be able to give this to that Catholic church. So thank you guys, God bless, and hopefully you'll tune into some of the other things that I may build in the future.